Good day, and I'm Karen Wilson, and this is Table Talk. My guest today is Carrie Huckeby, who is the new Executive Director of the Tennessee Broadband Association. Welcome to the show, Carrie.
Thanks, Karen. I appreciate it. It's good to be here.
I know you've been on here for Power of 100, but
That's
this
right.
is a totally different, this is kind of, we put our work hats on for this episode. Let's start with, I guess, the job of the Tennessee Broadband Association and who makes up the association.
Well, the association has actually been around since 1935, so I don't really know who formed it or who started it then, but it has been around since then. And it was known as the Tennessee Telephone Association at that time. And it's made up of about 18 telecommunication companies, 10 of those being commercial independent companies, and 8 cooperative-owned companies. And it's also made up of about 150 associate and platinum members. But our telecommunication companies serve about 30% or a little more of the state of Tennessee with services. And, you know, a lot of that area is rural areas like Ben Lomond Connect serves, and some of it's urban. So, you know, the association is all about representing these members, and each one of them, of course, have their own voice, but we represent them collaboratively. You know, we want their voice to be heard when there's legislation or policy changes or taxation or whatever is happening. The association's role is to represent all of our members and you know, make sure their interests are taken into consideration, and everyone knows who we are, basically, that we represent everyone, all the members.
And so there's a board, I'm assuming, that kind of gives everybody their voice, and then you go, or Mr. Knowles is still a part of it right now, and take that agenda that the board has set for you and work with that.
Yes, our board is made up of 15 directors, and each one of them represent one of the telecommunication companies. We call those Tier 1 and Tier 2 companies. Tier 1 companies are those that offer telecommunication services directly to consumers. Tier 2 companies are those that may offer long-distance services or carrier services behind the scenes to help telecommunication companies offer their services to consumers. But we have one board member from each of those companies, and then we also have one board member that represents the associate members. So yes, and they meet every month or every other month, but the association does carry out the direction from the board.
Okay, so let's start with, you know, you began as executive director in November, so you're fairly new to the position.
I am brand new.
What is your purpose as director?
Well, the executive director, you know, as you said, Mr. Knowles, Lavoie Knowles, was in that role for about 10 years. And so what happened was, when he was hired about 9 or 10 years ago, his focus was going to be legislative and policy, as I said, government affairs. And the association has grown so much, and also the focus has been intense on broadband, as you well know. And so as the association grew and as we got more membership and there was more to do and more to talk about, the board decided to split the roles and keep Mr. Knowles in the government affairs position. So because he was spending so much time in Nashville, it was very difficult for him to get to all the admin side of membership, conferences, webinars, newsletter, just storytelling, communicating, raising awareness. So it was difficult for him to do that. So they split the role, and named me executive director, which I'm very excited about because it is in my wheelhouse and, from my past experience. But my goals this year as executive director will be to get to know our members better, know what their challenges are and what solutions they're looking for. Also to keep content out there on our website that tells our members' story, what they're doing, how they're helping their communities. But it's also a big part of the executive director job is planning and hosting the conference, which is May 31st to June 2nd in Franklin. That conference is a great place and forum for everyone to come together and be able to network together and talk about whatever's coming in the future.
Right, educating. I know there's lots of segments that they can step out and go to and learn things.
Definitely. I mean, that's a big part of it is the networking side, but it's also arranging those speakers and those presentations that informs their members so that they're able to carry that back to their own companies. And also, we have the Lead Tennessee radio podcast, so I want to continue that and just continue that our voice is heard, and also to reach out to some other key players in the state that have the same mission as we do, to get broadband to our consumers, to maintain, improve quality of life. So to have those conversations with those groups that believe in the same thing that we do and are trying to do the same thing that we are as an association.
Right. I'm sure there's been a big step into educating cooperatives and all of your members about grants and things like that. Seems like the lots of grant money floating around right now, which is great for consumers. They can get services now that they've not been able to get before due to building grants.
Yes. And and as you know, I think you've done some grant writing yourself. It's not an easy job. It's pretty difficult, and it's great that there's so much federal and state money out there, and our members certainly go after that. But it's an art,
Oh yes, Jennifer Gillum here does a fabulous job with it now. It takes skill to write those grants and to win them.
It does, and it's great when they announce that you get a grant. It's wonderful news, but all of you know how much work goes into that behind the scenes of getting all that information and all the reporting that goes into that. So that's definitely in our conversation a lot, grant awards and applications for sure.
Yeah, because if there's money out there, the cooperatives and the associate members need it to provide that fiber service because it's not inexpensive, as you know, to provide.
No, it's very expensive.
Yeah, so the evolution of the TTA into the TNBA, let's talk about that, why telecom has had to evolve from phone lines into this broadband fiber. I know in our magazine that we talk about fiber all the time, but it's been an evolution from the phone line into the fiber. Talk about that.
Well, I said that the TTA started, or Tennessee Broadband Association started back in 1935, and it started as the Tennessee Telephone Association, and then it just kept evolving, and back in the 1990s we changed the name to Tennessee Telecommunications Association to represent more than the members weren't just about telephone service, they were about other things. And then as it's gone on, in 2019 we changed our name again to add broadband to our title, Tennessee Broadband Association. Because, as technology and innovation has evolved, we have too, our members have too. And, there's places we've moved from, all of our members have moved from offering just telephone connectivity to broadband connectivity, because as you well know, in the rural areas, there's still places that are underserved or unserved, and there's places that larger companies would not serve because of cost, even for us, there's places because of density or how it's populated or how much it costs to get there. That's why those grants and things are so important.
Right.
But our member companies have come so far. Many of the cooperatives were formed in the 50s, going door to door and offering, phone service so the communities could communicate. And the broadband is just as important today. We put it in our name, and that's what we talk about all the time is fiber. But we've changed and evolved as our consumers have changed, and as technology has changed. Who knew we would be doing teacher lesson, our students and kids would be doing their lessons using Zoom, or who knew that your main doctor's office would be teledoc, and you'd be making all those changes, or that farmers would be using broadband to see if their soil needed fertilizer and water, so to have a good crop. So over the years, the technology, the innovation has just continued to evolve. The consumer has continued to evolve. So the association has too, and all of its members have.
Well, that's great, because as you said, as I'm thinking through the years, originally we got a lot of our information over the phone. We picked up the phone, we called someone, and we got the information we needed. But as you said, the consumer has changed to where many times now their first stop is their computer to Google whatever it is, that they're looking for, or to get on a website. And it's great that these companies have changed according to the consumer. It's not been us pushing the consumer as much as it has been the consumer, their demands
Driving
being
it.
met. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
they've been driving it. I mean, who knew that when you would have a problem, like I was having an email problem yesterday, my Microsoft Outlook kept giving me an error message. And who knew you would just be able to call up Google and say, this is the message I'm getting, and it tells you step by step how to fix it. So
I know, that's a handy thing. I use that quite a bit.
I know, what would we do?
And it gives you like 20 different scenarios of what could be wrong, and you're like, okay, next I'll try this, next I'll try that.
I know, that's amazing.
It is.
And our members they're committed to, providing all of that in their communities and in their service areas, because they're very focused on customer success. They want their customer to be successful. So in order to do that, that they have to keep evolving, as we said.
Well, and as you try to attract as a community factories and employment for the people that live here, that's a necessity, that fiber and that broadband to attract those, because we all need good jobs that help pay our bills, and then that makes your community strong. So that's just part of it too. We touched on, I guess, the telecommunications providers staying relevant. And even they can be even innovative. Are there some ways you can think of that some of these telecom providers are kind of on the cutting edge?
Well, I think that the focus today is on fiber broadband, and I think they continue to look for ways to get broadband access to their consumers. Whether that's a fixed wireless solution or if that's a fiber solution or whatever that is, their main goal is taking care of their communities and their members, their customers. And I think they're listening to their vendors or our associate members, or many of them are vendors that provide our equipment that makes their networks work. And I think we're listening to them, we're staying informed, we're attending webinars, we're listening. Now, anything innovative off the top of my head, some particular something, I can't think of anything.
Well, I was thinking too of the home and things like that. It's seems like it's evolved into not just broadband and fiber, but all the things that will do for you.
Yes.
You're wanting to, like the other day, I turned on my oven here at work to cook my baked potatoes, but it was because of my wireless connection at home that I was able to do that. It seems like the consumer wants things like that. They don't really care what's bringing it to them. They just want to be able to do it, and that's some innovative things right there.
Well, we know that the foundation for that is having a reliable and stable and fiber connection, or having the bandwidth that you need to run all your smart home devices. I know I worked with a person at Word South, and I won't mention his name, but he had 96 smart home devices in his in his house. I think it was the record. But he turned the light switches on, or the heat, or the heating air, and all kinds of things that he used that. But it takes bandwidth, and it takes a good connection to make that happen. So our members continue to figure out how to get that foundation there where we get that good connection, and then the consumer uses it as they see fit. But I think part of my job as executive director is education. And we've been in marketing together for a long time, and we've done marketing where part of that is, after you get that connection, what do you do with it? How can you use it to find your science project for the next day, or find a recipe for dinner, things like that, or connect your oven so it turns it on before you get home and you'll be ready to do dinner. So, innovation has come so far, or what's out there is
all the appliances, and the devices and things like that.
Your washer and your dryer.
Yeah, and of course we have children at home that are driving us for those faster connections too. They're bringing in devices, and when I think of innovation too, it's keeping the fiber speeds and pricing at affordable rates, and maybe upping those to gig speeds and things like that, because there are so many devices in the home now.
Yeah, and I mean, look at how many of us work from home, even still. Some of us were working from home pre-COVID, but look how many are still working from home post-COVID, or during COVID. That stable connection, that reliable connection, is so important to communicate with the rest of your company, or Zoom calls, or education. So the number one goal, I think, for our members, our member company and our association, is to continue to work to get those connections there. I mean, our member companies have spent over $400 million of their own money without grants and loans since 2019 to the end of 2022. They've all invested $400 million. So they've got the consumer's best interest at heart, and they're very focused on customer and consumer success. I mean, you want your businesses, you want your communities, you want all of your, everyone to be successful, and in order to do that, they need that connection, and then they need to know and learn what to do with it after they have it.
I know probably most of the companies, especially the cooperatives and the other tier 1 entities that are all probably participating too in the relief package, where customers, I was listening to NPR the other day, and they said not enough people are participating in that program that gives relief, or helps pay for that fiber connection while all this is going on. It's a temporary thing, but if you've got kids or you're having to work from home and stuff, it's a great resource.
Definitely. I mean, we talk about the affordability of broadband a lot too, as well as the being able to have it. So that is a big part. But yes, that plan, and I know many of our member companies have spent time trying to educate their customers who's eligible, who should apply. This is a program, don't miss it. So that kind of education is very important too.
Yeah. Well, let's look at what's coming up, I guess, in 2022. What are some of the plans or ideas for the future that you want to share with our audience as far as the Broadband Association goes, or just things you're excited about that you've got planned for this year?
Well, first of all, I'm excited that the board split the roles, and that the association has been successful and grown so much that it did, that Lavoie is able to concentrate on the government affairs, and I'm able to do some of the marketing and member relations and plan the conference. talk about the sessions and speakers. And, I love a good project. I'm a good task person, like to check it off, so that this is right up my alley. But I'm excited just to work with the members and to get to know them, get to know what their challenges are this year and how our association can help them with that. Education, we've both talked about that quite a bit, that educating our members and providing speakers and sessions and webinars. We are going to kick off our 2022 webinar series. This year we hope to have 4 to 6. And the goal of that is to have a speaker or a subject that will, inform the audience and help them do their jobs and communicate with their customers. I'm also excited about reaching out to other, as I mentioned earlier, key players in the state that have the same mission as we do, have conversations with them, how we partner to reach Tennessee consumers. Do some of those things. You and I worked an event a few years ago at 4-H.
Yeah, and that was coming to mind.
Yeah, and it was the first time we had introduced ourselves to the 4-H. And they were able to come to the conference that year, and Governor Lee was there, and Governor Lee, has been very involved in 4-H. And
it was fun educating that age group and who are kind of like what I'll call our peeps. These kids are our kids, and educate them on telecom.
Yes, I think it was real eye-opening for us when we got up there and talked to them, because many of them didn't know the difference between broadband, internet, or Wi-Fi, because we would ask that question, who's your broadband provider? And they weren't sure they had broadband, but they knew they had Wi-Fi.
Right.
So I think it opened our eyes that education factor is there, but I think it also told us how much we enjoyed introducing the association and its member companies to them, because many of them had service with the member companies. They just didn't put it together. So, working with groups like that, getting to young people and talk about what we do, who we are, who makes up the association, why we're important.
I think going to that was very inspiring. The youth at those conferences are so impressive. They may not know the details, but they're sharp kids.
Yes, they are.
And it's such a great opportunity to talk to those, and let them know, I guess, how the connection happens. I also think of the youth tour. We do something like that as well,
FRS.
and that's kind of an education tool, but that's fun to reach out to the young people.
It was fun. It was a fun networking event for us to be with the other marketing people from the member companies, but I took a lot away from that, and it really meant a lot. So in the back of my mind, stepping into this role as executive director, I think about that, those opportunities that are out there to do those kind of things. So I hope we're able to do that.
Well, let's wrap up, I guess, with your background has just been years of telecom and marketing. How has all of that prepared you for the role of director? And I will say you're the first female director of the association, which I'm very proud and congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
But still, you've got years in the business, so let's talk about that.
Well, I hate to correct that, but actually I'm the second.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I'm the second. I think the first director may have been a female, but I can't think of her name. And I don't know how long she held that role, but I'm the second.
Great.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad to be here. But I was telling someone the other day that I've been in the industry over 30 years, which is still hard for me to believe when I say that. I think I forget how old I am. But I've been in the industry over 30 years, and I started, of course, with Venlo and Connect, and started in the service department, which to me is a great place to start a career in this industry, because you learn so much about the products, the services, the technology that makes it work, but you also learn about your consumer. You learn about your audience. So I did that. I worked in sales, I worked in public relations, did some in CLEC operations a little bit, but basically landed in competitive services marketing. and did that, but then also I had the opportunity to work for Telecom Management Services, which gave me the chance to work at WK&T in Mayfield, Kentucky, and we did a 100% fiber network project there, but I also got to work for an independent Ardmore telephone that was owned by WK&T. So I had experience with several different companies, and had a lot of experience in different departments, and was very fortunate to learn from lots of people and just work on a lot of different things that kind of carried with me. So this job is certainly in my wheelhouse of project development and marketing and storytelling and all of that. And and I also have been born and raised right here in Warren County and been raised in a rural environment. And
yes.
This has always been my home, and I still live, I live today on my family's farm, and that means a lot to me, and that history. So I think a little aspect of my personal life in the rural environment and bringing the industry together has kind of just brought me.
Grew up at a small business as well,
that's
family
right.
business. So.
Right. My mom and dad had a small business, and they ran for 25 years. I started working when I was 12, so I've had a little bit of experience with all kinds of target audience, different audience, farmers, and
yes.
telecom, and because my mom and dad ran the meat processing business in Morrison, Grissom's process, and so I always laughed and say, from meat processing to telecom, that was just a natural
progression.
That was a natural progression. Who doesn't do that? So, I've just had a good time, in my career and experience, and had the opportunity to learn a lot. And I told someone that I think it's just come full circle to this executive director job, where I get to work with member companies that I've known, and for over 30 years, and been familiar with them, and also it's kind of like coming home.
Yeah. Well, and as someone from Warren County, it's a source of pride. Lavoy being from here, and now this second director from this area here. So it's great for Warren County to have people in these positions of leadership in the state.
Well, I appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
It's a good role, and of course. It's nice to work with Lavoy again. I did work with him for many years, and he's helping me along this year in this transition, and he's definitely still in Nashville representing us, and on the government affairs side, legislation. We'll be working Day on the Hill February 23rd. So it's good to work with him again, and get more experience, and so I'm glad he's here holding my hand this year.
It's handy for both of you to be relatively close
It is.
distance-wise.
It is.
Yes.
They didn't have to change the post office box, still a McMinnville post office.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a great, I look forward to checking back with you again later on in the year after you've kind of wrapping up this first introductory year into your role. It's going to be a lot of fun to see.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, great show, and thank you to our viewers for watching again this week. We hope you have a safe, healthy, and happy week, and we invite you to come back again for more Table Talk.